Alright, so I just wanted to kind of show you guys my recovery system I came up with for my rocket. Um, it's not your typical setup where you use e-matches and um, basically that's the only difference is I'm not using e-matches, but I have the Easy Mini version 2 with a 9-volt supply, and I have a couple Wago connectors, 2-terminal Wago connectors that I use to quickly reload my ejection charges. And it's just a little 1/2-inch cap. Actually, it's a plug. I've sanded it down a little bit. It's all attached on there. Then my sled is just a piece of 1/4-inch foam board. I'm going to replace that with plywood eventually, but I'm just testing everything now to make sure it works. And then I've got 2 1/4-inch bulkheads that I cut out with a hole saw and sanded them down to fit inside my tube. This is my avionics bay, and I've got it set up with just a piece of tubing in one of the vent holes so I can test it. You just draw air into this tube with your mouth, and after a few seconds the altimeter will fire. So this is basically what I'm going to show you guys is how to make a very reliable e-match out of Christmas bulbs. And this is the portion that you want. There's hundreds of these on like a $5 strand of Christmas lights. You basically want to cut in between 2 lights and cut it to where you have a bulb, the fixture, and the 2 wires. That's about, I don't know, 2.5, 3 inches long. And that's all I need because I'm not going all the way to the altimeter. I have my drogue line, my drogue chute. That's the only one I'm using. This is a single deploy. This has a main over here, but I want the parachute to deploy at apogee, so I'm using the drogue terminals. And those come up through the bulkhead, through those 2 holes, and they loop around and connect to the Wagos. And then to reload this, all I got to do is stick the 2 terminals from my homemade e-match into these 2 terminals and close the levers, and I'm good to go. So I just kind of wanted to show you how I did this. You have this. You'll need a little diamond blade cutoff wheel, and you'll just cut the very tip of this bulb off very carefully, very slowly. You want to keep as much of the tube intact. You're just going to cut just the very tip before it starts to come to a point. You cut that off, and I'll go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, so respirator, obviously, while you're cutting these. You can see got a nice clean cut on that bulb. I don't know why it's not focusing. Anyways, while you're doing this, before you cut it, you want to check it with a multimeter. Put it on continuity, and just every step of the way, you want to test this. Make sure you get a beep. Let me see if I can do this with one hand here. Kind of difficult. One there. One here. So I don't know if you can hear that, but I am getting a beep. So that means that the filament inside there is still good. Sometimes when you cut these, that filament will pop, but you just throw it away and get a new one. I mean, like I said, there's hundreds of these for like $5. And you can buy e-matches, but you get, I don't know, 80 of them, and you pay like $60, including shipping. Just seems like a lot when this works just as good and super reliable. I've tested it probably 20 times, and it fires every single time. So long as that when you get this done, you check it with your multimeter, and you still have continuity when you have everything together. So basically, after you do that, you want to get your I have black powder, but to put inside the bulb, I found that using actual black powder doesn't work as good. It explodes, but it's too quick. It doesn't really have time to ignite the powder that's in the cup here. So I like to fill these with, believe it or not, bottle rockets. So you take a couple bottle rockets apart, and they have the black powder that propels them out. Then they have a slower burning delay fuel in them, and then they have flash powder at the very end, which is what makes them pop. So that's what this is in here, and I will go ahead and fill this almost to the very top. You want to leave a small amount of room at the top to put a drop of hot glue in there to keep the powder inside here. And you've essentially made an electric firecracker at that point. This thing basically explodes, and it doesn't all burn immediately. It explodes and then kind of fizzles out, and that's what you want to be able to ignite your actual black powder charge that's inside this cup. So I'll go ahead and fill this thing up and put a glue cap on it, and I'll be right back. Okay, so you can see I've got that filled almost to the top with the bottle rocket mix. It's like I said, it's got the black powder, the slow burning powder, and the flash powder all inside of it. You mix that up real good and pour it in there. You can kind of see, and then you put a little drop of hot glue in the top, and that seals this in real good. And that is your E-Match. And like I said, these things, they pop. They're pretty loud. It sounds like a firecracker going off. So what you do is you can buy black powder from the store, but it's hard to find it around here. So I just buy big boxes of shotgun shells, and I split them apart. These have exactly 1 gram of powder in them, so you can kind of figure out how much you need for your rocket and do it like that. So like I said, I've checked all the stores around me. Nobody sells powder, so this is how I do it. Very dangerous. Make sure when you're cutting these open, you're being safe about it. I've done this a lot, so I kind of know where to cut it. So you want to pour your black powder into your charge cup slowly. This is very hard to do with one hand. Okay. Give it a few taps. Kind of likes to stick to the edge a little, but that's okay. Okay. And then you just take your E-Match, and I orient it to the side where the wires are side like this, because I'm going to be folding them over down into the Wago connectors. And then you also want to take a little piece of tissue paper and stuff it around the edge. And you put this right in the center of your charge and stuff the tissue paper around it to keep this thing nice and centered and keeps the black powder from falling out. That's all I'm going to do. For now, while I'm testing, if you're actually going to put this in a rocket to fly, you'd probably want to take, a small piece of masking tape or something to throw over the top of that to keep everything nice and tight, so they don't rattle apart and this thing falls out while it's accelerating or something. But my AV bay, or E-Bay, is oriented upwards during flight, so the chances of that falling out are pretty slim. So I'll go ahead and put this in and attach it to the Wago connector, and I'll be right back to show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so here's what it should look like when you're done. So like I said, I took a piece of tissue paper and stuffed it all the way around there so that this doesn't fall out. It's in there pretty good, but and just remember, you constantly at every step you want to check that this fuse, or that this E-Match, still has continuity, because the filament that's inside these bulbs is, it's smaller than a human hair, and it's extremely fragile, so it can break pretty easily. So when you cut it, you want to check it. When you cut the tip off the glass, you want to check the continuity. If it's good, when you put the powder in, before you put the glue on, you want to check it again. After you put the little piece of glue in the top of it and let it dry, you want to check it again. And then when you finally get it in here and you're about to connect it to your Wago connectors, check it one more time just to make sure, because you don't want to put this E-match in here and launch this rocket and that E-match not go off. You're just gonna your rocket is going to crash if you don't have a redundant system, a duplicate altimeter or something controlling this, or even an ejection charge built into your motor. Which I tried to build motors with ejection charges, and it just doesn't work. It's too hard. So I built the Bullet and bought a flight computer. It was only $65-$70 I think for this Easy Mini, maybe 80 after taxes and delivery. But I will go ahead and I'll screw this bulkhead together, and we'll go outside and I'll show you guys that this actually does work. I'll be right back. Okay, here's the aviation electronics bay all together. I got the threaded rod going through both sides. I've got my eye hook, my eye bolt for my parachute hookup. This piece actually gets secured into the rocket. This bottom half does, with some screws, and this top portion will extend up into the nose cone area, the upper portion of the body tube with the nose cone on it, and that will be the portion that pops off. This is basically my avionics bay is my coupler between my nose cone portion and my booster section. So I'll go ahead and I'll step outside here, and I'll put this tube in my mouth and and suck on it for a few seconds, and once the pressure equalizes, the E-match will fire that ejection charge. So step out here. I don't know if you can hear it, but the altimeter is beeping, letting me know that I have continuity in my E-match. That's also another way you can know that your charge is good or not. So, all right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. As you can see, the cotton or the tissue paper is kind of burning there. We go ahead and put that out. So that was 1 gram. As you can tell, that had quite a bit of energy behind it. There's a little piece of glass hanging onto the igniter there. But it's cool because this basically just kind of pops up out of the way, and your ejection charge will eject your parachute. So it really does work. I mean, if you guys want to take the risk and do it this way, I've yet to test it in flight yet, but as soon as I get my rocket built, I'm in the process of building rockets right now. Just waiting on parts. So I will, once I actually test this in flight, I'll check back with you guys and let you know exactly how it goes. But like I said, if you want to do everything yourself, kind of scratch build everything versus, using, the only thing that I've really used that I didn't make is that Easy Mini altimeter in there, but that's kind of a must-have when you're flying rockets. If you want to really learn anything about it or have a reliable recovery system, that's really the only way to go. And I'm building my own engine, or my own motors, PVC motors. They generate about 40 pounds of thrust. Is the highest thrust that I was able to achieve so far. It was 40.2 pounds of thrust, and that had 170 grams of fuel with a 5/8 core, 1.25 inch diameter PVC. And here's the way I'm testing it. I have a little digital force meter, and I'll put the rocket in a body tube, and I'll put the motor up against the plunger there, and it records the peak. It's got a peak button there. It records the max thrust. I suggest making one of these if you guys are really serious about trying to build a high performance engine. I mean, 40 pounds of thrust for something that I think this is going to weigh right around 2 pounds. The rocket by itself, or sorry, the rocket with the motor, it's going to weigh right around 2 pounds, and maybe 2.5 pounds. And then with 40 pounds of thrust, I mean, that is more than enough to send that rocket higher than you can see. So like I said, I will check back with you guys whenever I get this thing actually in flight, and I will let you know how it goes. So thank you.